Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'm really delighted. We have a special guest again, Johnathan White. He's the founder of Sexual Kung Fu. And what he's all about is teaching you to get your energies back in balance, balancing your relationships, and being back in your own vitality and power. Johnathan, I'm excited to have you, man. This is the second time we've done this. And yeah, I think everyone's becoming aware of energy. At least, I mean, I've been aware of it for quite some time, but I know other individuals, some are just coming into that space. So I guess for this, man, I just really wanted to have a conversation around how you see individuals getting sensitive to energy and the connection between that and supporting people's relationships.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Jared. Good to be back here.
So yeah, I guess how do you see it, man? Like for if you're coming from that space where you're really sensitive to energy and you're aware, I mean, I always feel the energy of life and kind of feel things shifting. So I guess how do you manage that? How do you manage feeling that energy in relationship, your connection with others?
So I think it's first of all good to have kind of a baseline, right? Of like what's my own energy? What is mine? Like what's my normal state, right? And the thing is like we're swimming in this ocean of energy, of stimulation. There's all these things floating around, and it can become difficult to discern. Like, oh, this negative thought that popped into my head. That maybe that's not your thought, right? And so we're always kind of in communication with others on some level. It's just this constant exchange of energy. So I think it's important, first of all, to have, again, some sort of baseline. So you recognize, okay, this is my normal state, right? I feel grounded, I feel happy, I feel balanced overall. Maybe like, after hiking in the woods for a few hours or something, you just feel that good, vital feeling, right? So that's kind of your baseline. And so then you can start to recognize, okay, this kind of, this weird feelings popping up, this anger, this frustration, or this, whatever, like, okay, this is something that is not necessarily my own. So how can I clear it, right? How do I get back into my baseline, so to speak? So I think, yeah, first of all, getting to know yourself and what your sort of normal level is, and then it becomes easier to manage as you're interacting with others as well.
I love that. Yeah, I'm coming from a similar perspective in where like everyone has almost an energetic signature. What I call it's like everyone has what their energy does for themselves, for another human being. In one of my Art of Transformation classes where I'm teaching like coaches, healers, and counselors, that was one of the questions we asked for the week. It was, what is your energetic signature? Like, what is it that your energy does for some people? And it's really interesting because like for me, I know looking back on it, I didn't even really know what my energetic signature was. I never actually fully felt that until I'd probably say maybe like when I was 28 years old. I've had a lot of mentors, but I hired a coach, Michael Neal, and he was like an amazing mentor. And he just dropped me into a place so deep within myself that I never connected with him. I had already thought I knew like what was me. I had done like authentic self meditations and all this other stuff. But I remember just dropping into that space and feeling like, oh my gosh, I could live here forever. And it was like, well, yeah, like you do live there forever. Like that's who you are. That was kind of like what my mind said after that. And so it's really cool to see once you get a good feeling for your own energetic signature, and then you kind of know when you leave home energetically or when you get pulled out in other situations. And what I see so much go on in the world, and I think this is where, the relationship question comes in, is I think sometimes if we don't know what that energetic signature is and who we are, and we're not living from that space and we're not in that base, then we kind of just naturally gravitate towards others. I was speaking with one woman the other day and she said, it's weird. I can't feel you. She said, like, I can't, like, energetically, like she couldn't ping. And so I was kind of thinking about that. I was like, well, because what does that actually mean? And then I realized I think there's some individuals who they still haven't fallen down fully and embodied their existence here to the max. There might be some part of them that's still somewhere else. And I think that's I think when you're still in that space, and it seems like people tend to gravitate towards one person or the other. They might get pulled up in relationship dynamics that aren't really healthy or theirs. And so I find it really interesting to be aware of who we are as an energy, like what our energetic signature is, but then also know, I guess, what our energy does for other people as well too. And yeah, I definitely want to explore that connection a little bit though.
Yeah, totally. And it's like we always kind of attract what we need from others, right? Like maybe there's some incompletion within ourselves. There's some pattern that on a deeper level we're trying to resolve. So we often kind of manifest that situation. We attract that in others to kind of act out these things, to play these things out, so we can maybe learn the lesson we need to learn, or find some sort of resolution to a pattern, right? And the problem is when people don't learn what they need to learn, they kind of see conflictive situations and things like that as kind of putting a negative story on it, like, oh, this is terrible, that I'm a victim, this happened to me, it's not my fault, whatever, versus like seeing the opportunity to grow and to kind of overcome your shadows and your limitations in those kinds of conflicts and things like that. So we're always interacting and experiencing growth in this way, for sure.
Yeah, I love that. This brings me to a really interesting topic that I'm always wondering about. And we talked about this a little bit last time, but do you see the external world as being a reflection of the inner world always, or do you think you can get to a space where you're beyond that?
It's a good question. I don't know the answer to that, honestly.
It's okay. It's just a fun exploration.
Yeah. But I would definitely say the external world is very. I do find it very often be a mirror of what I'm going through, in my own relationships, my interactions with others, and things like that. So I do see my internal things played out in my external reality a lot.
Yeah, me too. I think I think we can go beyond it, because I do go beyond it sometimes. At least I like to think I do, where I'll be like, this isn't about me at all. Like, and I think there's, along my own journey, there was a point in my life where I always looked at myself as okay, this person's giving me a reflection. What does this say about me? But now I'm also like, I think, I've been really testing that theory for the last year and a half, and really, and then I realized, no, there's times where like this actually doesn't have anything to do with me, and then either this is a projection of the other person, or it's just like life kind of playing out. And so it's really interesting to get that it's just interesting to explore that space and get that perspective.
Yeah, and we're in a time of so much transformation, and a time that's very stressful for a lot of people, that people are just projecting things like crazy, acting out their angers, their frustrations. So it's like, when you can't always control what's happening in the external world, right? Which is why being able to maintain your internal state is so important.
Yeah, I love that. And I just want to speak to the audience, guys. If you have any questions, I see a couple of them up there on the board. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to put them up in the chat, and we'll definitely go into them near the end. And to bounce off that, Johnathan, I really like so this is a really cool, I think, topic is, right now the world is in like such a, depending on your belief on history, alternative history, I think the world is in it's in a moment, a space where so much transformation is happening. It's like technology is connecting everyone. You have cultures blending. You have like there's not really boundaries anymore because of technology, but at the same time there is. So you look at, like, I don't know if you've noticed Bitcoin shot up 40,000 to a ridiculous amount as the capital in the US was going weird. I don't really track any of that stuff that much. I don't give it my attention. But it's really just interesting to see. It's really just interesting to see all the transformation and the shifting that's going on in the world. How do you think that we as human beings can keep our energy balanced, be okay with the unknown and the uncertain, and still move forward? Like, what do you think the best way to do that would be?
So I think it really comes down to getting back in touch with our internal technology, these soft technological, devices we live in called bodies, right? this is the thing, is like we are in this world where we're so focused on the external things. It's like, oh, I have my iPhone, my computer, my car, but these things can be taken away from you at any time. And that's kind of what we're seeing now, is like what we're realizing, kind of the shadow that's being released, is that all the things we've taken for granted, may not be there anymore, right? So it's like, how do you be okay with like, unheard of, unprecedented change that we're going through and, going to see a lot more of, right? So to me, it's about reconnecting with the space of your body, reconnecting with the space of your heart, right? Going within, doing meditation practices, spending time in nature. When you're in nature, it feels calm, it feels serene. There's not all this chaotic, insane things happening out in nature, right? It's calm, it's serene, it's this natural, harmonious state. So, when you're able to turn off the CNN, turn off the TV screen, and just connect back with your body, the natural world, play, have fun, move your body, right? It keeps you grounded, keeps you in the moment. And, also obviously doing some work to be able to let go of the attachments, the things you're holding on to, the things that, you are, addicted to in some way, right? Because a lot of things are changing. So, yeah.
No, I think that's a great way to answer, man. I mean, I see with all the change that's happening, I think it's going to take people to stay very, very grounded, and being in nature, being away from technology, being away from all those things that kind of pull or suck our awareness and distract us. Totally agree with not watching mainstream. For everyone who's watching, great job. Here, not watching mainstream news is lovely. I really think it's valuable. I guess I had JP Morgan on the other day. He's like another coach who I really look up to. He's invested a lot in himself. He's a really good. I would just say, like, I felt like we were on a very similar level. And one of the things that I asked him, I said, what's one of the best practices that you can do? And he says, well, I ground myself in uncertainty every day. And I love that thought, where it's like grounding yourself in uncertainty, because I think that's what people do. Like when we start feeling anxious or worried, it's usually because we're unsure or uncertain of what's happening next. And so we distract ourselves from that emotion. I'm just speaking for what I see typically, what I see in my own life from the past, what still comes up every once in a while. Long story short, I guess what I'm really saying is, I think grounding yourself in uncertainty is probably one of the best practices that we can do as human beings, given all the crazy amounts of shifting and changing that's happening and transformation in the world right now. And I think that's why there's this direction and pointing back to the importance of going into your inner space and really grounding yourself there. What are your thoughts, Johnathan, on like just getting grounded in the unknown? Like, how do you see that? What do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good way of phrasing it, right? Being able to ground yourself in I forget what you said exactly, transition or chaos or whatever. But I think that's very important, because in the end, we have no control over the external world at all, right? And so when you accept the fact that everything is a constant change, everything's going to change, and be able to find some sort of stability within that, it's like you're able to surf the waves, right? You're able to ride those waves of change instead of getting hammered, and slammed into the ground by them, which a lot of people are. And I think we're in a time where people are either going up in their vibration or they're going down, right? No one's really like staying at a neutral level. It's just like you're either raising your consciousness right now, or you're like getting, kind of sucked into the brainwashing, so to speak, right? And so how do you keep your vibration high in a world of chaos, right? Again, it's about your focal point, focusing on inspiration, focusing on feelings of joy, love, bliss, focusing on your heart space, right? Clearing your body, clearing your mind, and just doing whatever you can to keep yourself in the flow, whatever makes you feel good, whatever activity you do that's just like, when you do that, it feels like time doesn't move, right? Whether that's like playing a musical instrument, creating some art, whatever it is, when you have that thing, you stay focused on that, it's going to keep you in the zone. And learning meditation, breath work, things like that are very valuable tools as well. So fortunately, we have such a vast resource of information to us through the internet that it's really the time to do your research and learn how to balance yourself, I would say.
Yeah. Well, I think getting into a space where you're recognizing what your inner flow is incredibly important. However you choose to stay in your flow, and then being aware of where, like you said, where you put your time, your attention, and not not mistaking. One of the things that I see sometimes with the internet is like people can get addicted to information and they're always wanting more and more and more. And I think that's something that, like, there's the illusion that more information is going to fix our problems, or like more information is going to fix the relationship, or whatever it is. But I think what's most important is that we focus on those internal states, knowing when we're in our flow, knowing when we're out of our flow, and being cognizant and aware of what's going on in our inner space. That being said, how do you, Johnathan, I'm curious, how do you look at your relationship to your inner space and then the personal relationships in your life? And what's the connection between the two that you see?
Yeah, that's, it's a good question. For me, it's like, I have a pretty strong relationship with my inner space, right? I do a lot of, I do a lot of practices. I'm really into Qigong, kind of these Taoist practices, internal alchemical meditation. So I have a pretty solid relationship with my inner space. And that's kind of my priority, really, is like keeping that space clear.
Yeah.
And that allows me to go into relationship out of a much more clear and balanced and intentional space, because a lot of people, again, they engage in relationships as like, I need this thing from this person. I need to kind of like manipulate this person so I can get this thing, right? That's a very common pattern, I would say. And so when you have this clear relationship with your own space, like, who am I really? What are my fears? What are my limitations? What are my triggers? Whatever. Then you're able to enter into a relationship from a much different space, right? When you have some sort of practice where you are filling yourself up first, then you have much more to give because you're overflowing. And when two people come together in a relationship out of a space of overflowing, it's quite a different dynamic than coming into it from like trying to take from each other.
Oh, totally. Absolutely. Well, that being said, like, your inner space, I mean, do you see people, can they get caught up with that inner space as well too? Like, where that can become a bad thing, do you think?
Well, I mean, it can turn into a sort of, I'm not exactly sure if this is what you're getting at, but kind of like a form of escapism,
Right.
like, well, I could just, my life's a mess, I'm in debt. I've treated these people badly. I'm just going to go hide in this cave and meditate for 10 years. So I think it's really, it's about balancing your, the Taoists talk about your Ming and your Xing, which is your worldly destiny and your spiritual destiny, right? So it's like being able to balance, why did you come here to this planet? Why did you incarnate into this body? What is your purpose, your mission in this world? So having that on the one hand, but at the other hand, remembering your connection to source, remembering, your divinity in a way, your higher spiritual nature. So being able to balance these two things, I think, is what gives you the greatest fulfillment in life.
I love that. Yeah, because I think sometimes we can get too focused on the material world and forget our true spiritual nature and where we really come from. And I think other times we can be too focused on the spiritual nature. At least this is what I see. I feel like I spend most of my time pretty balanced, although, sometimes in seasons I can get a little unbalanced. What I see is sometimes individuals will focus too much on that vertical connection, and they won't really be like doing anything here in the horizontal plane. And then other times it's just purely a focus on the horizontal plane and there's no vertical connection as well. So would you just say having a regular practice keeps those things in balance then?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of intention, right? So obviously you have, your spiritual practice, you're meditating, you're praying, whatever that is for you, right? That's, that's great over there. But at the same time, how are you, balancing your relationships with others? What are you contributing to the world? What gifts do you have to bring to the world? What are you doing to make this world a better place, right? So it's about having these two things together, and that, that's brought me the most fulfillment personally.
I love that. Yeah, no, I totally agree. So Johnathan, I'm curious, when it comes to relationship, how do you see the relationship with another human being? Like if let's say, because I'll feel it, like I'll feel I'm in my clear space, I have my patterns and all this other stuff worked out. I start connecting with this other person. Like I'm at the point where even in my practice, I'll be able to see if someone has an imbalance in that internal space or a shadow or whatever it is. How would you say, like, when you connect with an individual, do you see where a person's kind of imbalanced right off the bat, just from your level of perception if you're in a clear space? Can you?
Oftentimes, yeah. I usually have a pretty decent sense of where people are coming from. And it's like they say, so subconsciously we make our first impressions of a person within the first few seconds of meeting them. So it's like we all kind of have this very intuitive psychic nature that's just been blocked in some of us to different degrees.
Right. I love that. Yeah, because I mean, I can pretty much see it from a mile away. And I remember I was with one woman. This was last summer, and there was everything on the outside looked good, but my intuitive nature was like, something's off. Like, I'm seeing all these great things, and I love these aspects, but also there's some red flags here. And so I spoke to that. I just said, hey, I love this aspect of you, this aspect, but also I'm a little concerned about this, and this. And it was so funny. It was the first time for me in my own life. I've always done it in business and my work, but for me in personal romantic relationship, where I just said right off the bat, like, look, this is what I need. This is what I see. And just threw it out there. And it seems kind of juvenile. I mean, I'm 30 then. Yeah. So I was surprised that I was getting it like that late, but I was pretty shocked. I was like, wow, that's the first time that I've actually ever spoken to my intuition right off the bat in personal romantic relationship. I never had that challenge with business. I never had that challenge with any other area of my life, but in personal romantic relationship, I could see that there was some things there. And so I spoke to it right away. That being said, this is kind of brings us back to the whole conversation of, inner and outer. Like, I don't think that relationship came in. Maybe it came in to show me something about myself, but that was an instance where, like, I guess I spoke to it. I could see the red flags, and it was just truth. And I think sometimes people think that, like, I think sometimes individuals think that every external reflection we get is something pointing to us. But I also find that sometimes it's just, no, we just got to speak our truth of what we see on the outside. And like, it's not a reflection at all. You just don't want that coming into your life.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Yeah.
So I see that sometimes because sometimes I'll have clients or people in the community where they'll be like, they try to figure out every single reflection. And I'm like, that would be overwhelming. I think at one level of consciousness and work that's really, really valuable. But then I think you can get caught up in it. And at another level, it's like, hey, well, maybe it has nothing to do with showing a part of like what's going on within you. Maybe it's just as simple as you have to just speak fearlessly and draw the boundary. Like maybe that's, maybe it's as simple as that,
Yeah, totally. It's easy to kind of overanalyze these things as well. It's like, I try not to get too mental about this kind of stuff. It's like, if there's some major pattern arising, I'll like, really look into it. But overall, it's just like, okay, that's just who that person is. I'm this person, whatever.
Right. It's not that big of a deal. Yeah. No, it was funny. I mean, that was really, I think, how a lot of people get into this work is like, you can get lost in your own mind and your own thinking. And I see that. And I love what you shared about not getting caught in that headspace, because I see that a lot. I see some try to read every single sign. It's like, oh, that's synchronicity. 11:11. It's like, oh, God. like slow down. It's okay. Like, you don't have to find meaning in everything. Like there's meaning in just existence and being here.
Oh yeah. So it's like we're humans really good at storytelling. We want to make up these big elaborate stories about everything. So
yeah, I totally agree, man. I think that's a really important lesson, is just to be okay with like going beyond the story. And okay, you're just here, you're living, as you mentioned, what's your spiritual path? What's your worldly service? And are you in the middle of the two? And are you staying aligned?
Oh yeah.
But Johnathan, I'm curious for you, when it comes to the relationship, do you ever get out of a space where you're imbalanced, like, or are you pretty much always staying centered and aligned? Like yeah.
Well, my focus is always to stay centered. I can't say that I'm there 100% of the time. We all have our challenges. I have my own things that come up and things like that. But I think, I'm fortunate in that I've been so into this kind of work for so long that I'm able to really quickly recognize when I am kind of out of my center, when something's a little bit off, and I can quickly do something about it instead of just, living out that pattern for years, like a lot of people do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think some people, like I think some individuals, like that's their normal space. Like they're just used to it, and there's nothing, they don't know anything else, or that's just, maybe they've deemed that it's normal for them and that's how they're going to live. I remember I had one coaching session where I just finally realized, I'm like, oh wait, like this person's more comfortable in that pain than they are in, unity or oneness or, connection to themselves.
Yeah. It's, that's kind of our programming too. It's like we just accept these certain belief systems as our reality without thinking twice. So that's kind of the challenge for, those of us who wish to kind of evolve beyond that, is to do more of this inner work.
Johnathan, do you always see we've been talking about the relationship to people on the outside, your inner world. Do you always see the inner world work as like never ending?
Yeah, I mean, it's like everything's in a constant, everything's a constant change. I don't believe that you ever get to the state where like, it's just like, oh, I'm just white light now and everything's perfect. I mean, when you're in a physical body, you're always going to have some kind of work to do, right? So I think it's a never ending process. Creation is constant change. And honestly, it would probably get boring if to just be in this, there's no challenges ever again in my life. Like we came here for a reason, I would say, in this chaotic, amazing planet or Earth.
Yeah. I love that, man. I totally agree. I think a lot of the times people get caught up in the like, I'm in the enlightened state, or okay, everything's perfect now and nothing's going to change, nothing's going to shift. And like, I'm here. And I do see sometimes individuals will get caught up in that space where, they're in that headspace, and it's like, we got to remember like challenges, problems is part of evolution and development and growth. And I think with what's going on in the world at that global level is really pointing to that. Like right now, all the challenges around the world and, what we see coming up on the news. And obviously I don't watch the news, but I get little snippets of it. Oh, wow. Capitol Hill, that's actually is pretty intense. Okay. And then done with it. But the point that I'm saying is I think, everything that's happening in the world, it really is pointing to some great changes at the individual level as well, too.
Absolutely. I mean, so many people are, waking up to, the fact that there's a lot more to this planet, a lot more to our history, and a lot more to ourselves, our potential as humans than we've ever been taught. So I'm really excited about the times we're living in. I think I'm very optimistic. I'm very positive. There's a lot of ancient prophecy about this time that we are living in right now. So there's no place I'd rather be right now than right here on Earth at the forefront of this crazy transformation we're going through.
I love that, man. I'm totally 100% with you. And I think that's so important to remember, because sometimes people will come from the opposite perspective and they'll be like, oh, and it's like, no, like, this is great. Like this is pointing to our growth and development as a species. And like, what could be more exciting? Growth and development. Yeah, it might be hard or difficult, but that's a part of life. That's a part of growth. That's a part of expansion. And so I totally agree with you. I mean, this stuff jazzes me up, and I hear, it's so funny to get the reflections back. Some people I hear like, oh man, 2020 was, and I'm like, dude, 2020 was like awesome. It was so, like it wasn't like, my life wasn't really any different. Like I was still doing stuff online, still doing my one-on-one work, my programs. So it's so interesting to see that all the different individuals' experiences and how they choose to interpret them. And it's like 2021, like I'm excited to see what shifts and what changes and how the world is going to be by the time the whole COVID thing closes out or finishes,
Yeah. I mean, perspective is everything, right? It's like the thing about like going through difficult times is like, I look back in my life at certain situations I was in, maybe hurtful, situations that at the time I was like, this is terrible. How could this happen to me? But those situations defined who I am today. I wouldn't be doing the work I'm doing today. I wouldn't be the person I am today without all those challenges, right? That I overcame. And now, I have that knowledge to share with others so they don't have to go through all those same challenges, right? So being able to have that perspective and kind of, acknowledge that pain and suffering can be opportunities for us to grow.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm having one person comment here, Johnathan. I'm sorry if you hear the wind in the background. It is incredibly stormy right now. It's really neat, actually. So if you get distracted by the wind, I apologize. I love it.
Yeah, I can't. I hear like very slightly, but no, it's not. It's not.
Okay, good. Awesome. Yeah, and it really is. It's amazing that we're at this place in this time. Depending on your belief in history, I don't know if we've ever been at a time like this or not, but I do know that I think there's just more shifting and transformation happening than any other time that we know of, or at least, depending on your history. Okay, I know I was reading one guy a while back, probably back in like 2012 when I first started really waking up, and Ray Kurzweil. I'm not sure Ray Kurzweil if you've heard of him.
I haven't. No.
He's a technologist, but he really speaks to he explores the relationship between humans and technology, which I find super, super fascinating because I look at technology as this crazy conglomeration of it's where humans built technology, humans are nature, we take nature and we build technology. So it's like this weird, interesting space where humanity and nature intersect and allows it to know itself on a deeper level. Like we're connecting through technology right now. So where I'm going with that is he said that we've experienced more change in this last upcoming 20 years than we have in the 100 years before. And we experienced more change in that 100 year in from the 1900s to the 2000s than we have from the 1900s to when Christ was on earth. And so there's like this exponential rise and change of technology. And so I guess my question for you, and this is just an exploration, man, how do you see technology changing human relationship? And are you seeing how it's shifting? And what do you see? Yeah, how are you seeing the intersection of the two?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And I think it can really go down two paths, right? One is a very, very positive path, and one's an incredibly negative path, right? Because we have this kind of weird AI consciousness that's rolling out, and a lot of the dark agendas behind that on the planet. A lot of people are becoming addicted to their devices. You go out in public now, no one's really having this human interactions anymore. They're glued to their phones, right?
Yeah.
So as that continues, it's going to really take away from that which makes us humans, right? On the other hand, if we can understand that, because a lot of our technology, part of the problem with it is that it's not really in resonance with our human energy fields, right? Like, some of these new technologies are having really devastating consequences on our health. The electromagnetic spectrums they radiate. But if it was to be retuned in a way, the frequencies they emit were in harmony with the Schumann resonance, the natural frequencies of the earth, right? This would actually boost our health. It would boost our consciousness levels, right? And and the knowledge is already out there, but certain forces have kind of dictated the direction that technology, its advancement, has been used to kind of keep a lot of us unconscious, right? So we're kind of going down a rabbit hole here. And I think, to me, this is why I'm so into developing our own internal technology, because 95% of our DNA is completely dormant. They call it junk DNA, right? But it's not, it's dormant DNA. It's these incredible psychic, Jedi-like capabilities that we have in these amazing bodies we have that are, again, they're completely dormant, and that's starting to activate as we're, changing our alignment in the soul, in the galactic spiral and things like that. So I'll just finish this point I'm making with, I follow a guy named Greg Braden, and he talks about this.
Greg,
he talks about this. He talked to this Native American elder, and he says that there was a time when we were so advanced with our internal technology that we didn't need devices and things like that, because our minds were so developed we could manifest anything instantaneously, right? But as we fell from consciousness, we began to build outside of us the things that we had lost within us, right? And when we reconnect with that internal space, in a moment, we'll let go of all this external technology.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, and that's so true. I do look at the human body as it is a piece of technology. I mean, it's what we can do with the mind, what we can do with our energy if we are to fully embrace and open up into that. I think we would recognize, and I think some people are, and but I completely agree. And I mean, I was looking at, I think, I mean, I never have been in it, but I think I saw someone wearing an Oculus, and I was just, I was seeing this thing, and I was like, is that real? like literally, it's kind of scary, but like, people just going into a whole nother virtual reality. Whereas like
Oh
I
yeah.
look at physical life is already a virtual reality. So it's like, oh my gosh, is there going to be like another, splice to just people living in that VR? And I mean, it's really bizarre, but I think what's most important, I've seen technology. It's done two things, at least in my own life. One, I think it's been great because I can connect with anyone, anywhere, my family, any place. So it's really shrunk time and space. So like time and space is becoming very irrelevant given that level of technology. At the same time, with that, if you can connect with anyone, anywhere, if you can order anything off of Amazon, have a drone fly it through your window, like there might be a sense of immediate self gratification and lack of discipline and just wanting what, like, it's great, it connects communities, but at the same time, like people are finding more connection online than they are with their own family. And so it's like, really, when I was home over the holidays, I was seeing some of my other family, and like some of the kids were just like hanging out on the Xbox, talking on their. I'm sounding like an old man when I say this because I was too, but like they just want to hang out with the communities online more than they do their family. Understandably so, because they get like more connection from that community than they do their own family. And so it's really interesting to see what's happening in the world in technology and how it's shifting human relationship. I think it's allowing us to find our, you can call it soul tribe or vibe tribe, whatever you want to call it. But at the same time, it's breaking up some of these, or it's putting, maybe not breaking up, but it's putting in new layers of complication into family structures, into societal structures and things like that. So it'd be really interesting to see how it is, I think, that we adapt to all of this in the next, 30 years. And when I look at the internet, I mean, I think the internet came out when we were both just getting born around, I was born in the 90s, and I think you're similar around that same age, right, Johnathan?
89. Yeah.
89, yeah. So like it'll be really interesting to see if you look at how much has happened since we've been on the planet. It's like, man, when we're 60,
Yeah.
like what's it going to be like?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I think with technology, it really just comes down to having discernment, right? Having, obviously, I have technology in my house. I engage with it every day, but it's like not letting it control you. Not, if you can't go an hour without, checking your phone screen, then, you might want to like recheck your relationship with technology. And I think the most important thing here is that it's very dangerous when our kind of scientific technological advancement is out of balance with our spiritual evolution, because then, we're still in that fight or flight, third dimensional, everyone's in enemy mode, and things become weaponized and we destroy ourselves. It's been played over again and again in our history.
Yeah, Jonathan, I love that you say that. I totally agree. There's like this proclivity for, it seems like, for man and womankind to want to control the external world, but like the real thing is if we can control our internal world, like we don't need to spend billions of dollars on a defense budget, or there's no point of it. And I do agree. I think like we have evolved more technologically as opposed to emotionally and spiritually. And I think right now what we're seeing in the world, at least my view or perspective of it, is that we're seeing a time where people are being forced to come back to their center. They're being forced to come back to their relationship with themselves, with each other. and really allow those other tracks of development to grow and develop, as opposed to just, science, technology, engineering, and math. It's like, cool, that's great. Like, we can control and manipulate our physical world, but like, let's have like a spiritual, I don't know, an emotional, and like, like let's have like the soft skills and that development in our schools, our education system, in our society as well too, because those are just as important aspects, if not more. Like when we look at the proliferation of nuclear weapons, I mean, that's like, yeah, we evolved at that technological level, but emotionally and spiritually, like, where's that at? And so
it's almost a step back in that situation, right?
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree. So I really think balancing out, and I think that's what makes our work in the world so powerful. And you see this proliferation of coaches and healers and like I just say transformational presence. I like that. There's not really too much ego involved. It's like, no, I'm just a transformational presence. And I think that's why our work is so important in the world, is because we have evolved too far down those areas, and we haven't thought about what are the implications of. I have one client. He's a future technologist, and all he does is consult on exploring the connection between technology and human relationship. And it, like, he blows my mind when we have our sessions. And I'm like, holy cow! Like, this is actually crazy. Like this is way more serious than I first imagined. I don't go into fear about it. I just see it. Like, I see the implications of it. I'm like, wow, yeah, this work is important, because there was one thing I wrote. It was I think it was like Elon Musk, or someone quoted something. I can't remember who it was. It was some big figure. I never really read that stuff, but he said that he was like worried about artificial intelligence or something taking over. It was like some fear statement. And then I like thought about it, and I was like, wow, like the only times I really ever get triggered these days is when I'm trying to get customer service for my technology, for my business, and I know there's no other human being on the line. Like, that's when I get really, really angry, because I'm not feeling that human presence there, or I have that human relationship. And so then I started thinking about it, and I was like, wow, wait a second. If we're getting blocked technologically, like maybe that is how AI takes over. It's just like technology slowly proliferating every aspect of our human life before we don't even know that it becomes us. And that's a whole rabbit hole. But long story short is, I really think it's important, like you say, that we bring awareness to whatever it is that we're doing with technology, and it does change our relationship to ourselves. It does change our relationship to others. And we have to bring awareness to it, because if we don't, then just like any tool unconsciously is going to reap more destruction than creation.
Yeah, that's a great point. Definitely.
Johnathan, thanks for being here, man. Are you cool with taking out some questions?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
Awesome, man. So we'll finish up with some questions here. I'm going to go to Ozma first. She says, how can I know the pattern that I'm not aware of? Brilliant question.
Yeah, sometimes it takes an external. I would say with these like really deep patterns I've had that I just can't I've just been blind to in some ways. For me, it's been really helpful to kind of have someone else look at the situation, like a healer, a coach, whatever. I think that other people who are more, objective, have a much easier time just kind of seeing your patterns than you do, because you're very emotionally invested in a way, right? So I think outside help can be very beneficial in that way.
I love that. Yeah. Ozma, get a coach, get a mentor, get someone in your life who can give you those reflections. I think there's this belief that I see it in the awakening and the healing communities, that we need to just like, oh, I don't need anyone else. I have my divine voice and I'm trusting my intuition and my flow. And I do not take that perspective at all. At one point I did, but I think that was really arrogant and naive of me when I look back on it. Like, I think as divine beings, like, yes, we do need to listen to our own voice. But at the same time, we're still human beings and we do need each other. And I think human beings have a service to reflect back to each other when, if they want it. And I'd say both, like, trust the divine internal voice, but at the same time, have those mentors, have those people who've walked further down a path or who have, established a level of consciousness within themselves that you're looking to establish. And I think it's important to honor both of those realities.
Definitely.
I love that. Thanks. Yeah, great answer. Let's see here. Let's go to Lily. Lily says, how to deal with a person who is struggling with honest vulnerability, withholding factual, emotional info. He wants to stay friends, but I don't feel my emotional needs are being met. Is leaving okay?
This is a very common pattern for men. We're, in our society, men are like, you can never show emotion. Emotion is weakness. Don't ever let them see you cry. And unfortunately, this, literally causes diseases for a lot of men because they just hold on to these things their entire life. So, and someone who's like that, it can be difficult, because you can't really force anyone to do anything, right? But I guess all you can really do is communicate. Hey, I really would like you to share more with me. I won't think you're any weaker or any lesser of a man. I think you'll be more of a man for it, right? So just kind of opening up that dialogue, I think that's all you can really do.
Yeah, I love that. I completely agree. I remember for me, after I think I got back from when I was 22, I got back from combat, and I remember just thinking to myself, like, showing emotion, like, of course that's human. Like, we need to do that. And I totally agree. I think it comes up for some more men than women, maybe at the collective level. But I think offering an invitation to allow that individual offering an invitation to be open and vulnerable. I mean, vulnerability has so much power to it. Let's see what else we got here. I think that's all we got. We got some people sending love and all those other things. Johnathan, thanks so much for being here, man. We really appreciate your time, your energy, your space. What are you doing? I know you're always running programs as well too. Do you have anything that you want to share with us?
Yeah. So first of all, thanks for having me, Jared. Always good to connect with you. I do have some various programs. One is it's a newer online school that I've opened up. It's called Immortal Energy Arts. You can go to immortalenergyarts.com. It's basically structured training in internal energy practices, developing your chi, your energy, qigong, tai chi, these sorts of things. So really, really awesome work to be doing right now. So you can go to immortalenergyarts.com to find more work about that, or find more information about that. And my account, you can find me on YouTube, Instagram. Just type in Sexual Kung Fu. That is my media there.
Awesome. Great. Johnathan, thanks so much for being here, you guys. Feel free to check that out, everyone. We're also, me and Linda, you've seen her here for a lot of our interviews. We are running our next Art of Relationship, Communication, and Leadership program. All that info is there as well, too. Check out what we're both doing, and we all wish you a wonderful, lovely, powerful, peaceful day. Thanks for joining, everyone.